Well, hello everyone. It is great to be back with you. This is the We Shall Not Sleep podcast. I appreciate you all being patient with me as I was on vacation last week, a much needed break, just a long weekend away, and I just wanted to really just cut myself off from everything just for a time. So thank you guys for bearing with me on that. So today, if you have your Bibles or if you wanted to follow along, I'm going to be in Matthew chapter 24, because it's weird. It's just been a weird last few days for those here in North America. We had the total eclipse, to which a lot of my family members got to witness and see. And you know, I worked at the planetarium when I was at Olivet, and I was a TA for astronomy. I took both astronomy classes. I've always loved that science. I always loved learning more about the stars and the heavenly bodies. So, you know, for me, this is not like a shock or anything. And my buddy had some glasses. We were able to kind of view it. It was really cool. Regardless of all of that, though, this renewed yet another talk about eschatology, the end times. So study of the end times. People say that the end is nigh, or Jesus is coming back very quickly. And it's always been my contention, and pardon me for the microphone, it's always been my contention on this show that, of course, we're in the end times. And the reason why I know that is because after Jesus ascended 2,000 years ago, he said, "Behold, I'm coming back." And he's coming quickly. He sent that message through Revelation from John when he was writing Revelation on the island of Patmos. That was the revelation given to John, and it's the words written in red from Jesus saying, you know, I am coming quickly. That we know through our scriptures that have been verified, and something that has been looked over, the language, everything as far as the canonization of the Bible. That's the next event that is supposed to happen. Now, before all of that happened, Jesus himself speaks about this because his disciples, being humans, had very much some of the same questions that we do as people today. So the little heading there is signs of Christ's return. So, of course, we're in the end times, but we've been in the end times for 2,000 years, okay? That's the next thing that's going to happen. Thinking about the Lord of the Rings trilogy. After the Two Towers is done, what's the next event? The Return of the King. You just know that that's the next event. We know this is the next event, except for an authorship date of the book. We don't know when that's going to happen. And the reason why we know that is because Jesus tells us so. So Matthew 24, starting at verse 1. Jesus came out from the temple and was going away when his disciples came up to point out the temple buildings to him. He said to them, "Do you not see all these things? Truly I say to you, not one stone here will be left upon another, which will not be torn down." As he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things happen? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" Okay, very important. They're not parsing their words. When are you going to come back? When's the sign going to happen? What's the end of the age? And Jesus answered them and said to them, "See to it that no one misleads you. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will mislead many. You will be hearing of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not frightened, for those things must take place, but that is not yet the end. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And in various places there will be famines and earthquakes. But all these things are merely the beginning of birth pangs." Well, the 20th century certainly has seen its fair share of wars, famines, awful miscarriages of justice, a lot of child sacrifice through abortion. You want to throw in genocide too. There was a lot of stuff happened in the 20th century. It still continues in this century, of course. I'm not denying that fact. But these are just the beginning, Jesus is saying. Then, verse 9, "They will deliver you to tribulation and will kill you, and you will be hated by all nations because of my name. At that time many will fall away and will betray one another and hate one another. Many false prophets will arise and will mislead many. Because lawlessness is increased, most people's love will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end, he will be saved. This gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all the nations, and then the end will come." So there's going to be martyrs. There's going to be suffering. Many people are going to fall away. Be another sifting of the sand, of course. Many prophets will come out, mislead many, because lawlessness and justice will increase. Many people's hearts basically will grow cold. Love won't be very much in abundance anymore. But the fact is, like, this gospel has to be preached everywhere. And he goes on to say in verse 15, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken of through Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand, then those who are in Judea must flee to the mountains. Whoever is on the housetop must not go down to get the things out that are in his house. Whoever is in the field must not turn back to get his cloak. But woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days. But pray that your flight will not be in the winter or on a Sabbath. For then there will be a great tribulation, such as not occurred since the beginning of the world until now, nor ever will. Unless those days had been cut short, no life would have been saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. Then if anyone says to me, behold, here is the Christ, or there he is, do not believe him. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and will show great signs and wonders, so as to mislead, if possible, even the elect. So there's going to be a time, yes, of great persecution. And there'll be like basically just saying like you must get away, you must flee, but you don't have time to go back and think and look over your possessions. What are you doing it for? Are you trying to save your possessions, or are you trying to protect your family? And it's kind of like one of a simple interpretation. And just pray that those times come in a moment where you're not prevented from actually fleeing. And then he goes on to say that, like, while you're fleeing and when you're fleeing persecution and you're trying to escape some things, for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. But very much be weary of, like, hey, Christ is out there. Go find him. He's come back, because this is the signs of the end. And he's like, do not believe it. Do not go out there. Don't believe that these are all false peoples. Then he says, again, verse 23, then if anyone says to you, behold, here is the Christ, or there he is, do not believe him. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and will show great signs and wonders, so as to mislead, if possible, even the elect. So even those people who belong to Jesus in a way will be, a lot of us, if you place your faith in, and based on fear, you'll be led astray. Behold, I have told you in advance. So if they say to you, behold, he is in the wilderness, do not go out. Or behold, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe them. For just as the lightning comes from the east and flashes even to the west, so will the coming of the Son of Man be. Wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. And it goes on, and I would really encourage you to read the rest of Matthew chapter 24. But it's like the idea that when Christ comes back, everyone's going to know it. It's just not, you're not gonna go, oh, I don't think that's it. It's gonna be spectacular. Everyone's gonna be bowing down because here comes the creator of the world. And it's not gonna be one of those things like, hey, is that this really weird, funny looking dude in the desert? Is that Jesus? No. Do not believe him. And so I just want to encourage us not to lose our ever-living minds. We are starting to go crazy because we believe that our persecution sometimes is special, and that we've just had it so bad. Like, can you imagine living in like Poland or Germany in World War II? Could you imagine being like somebody who was born at the turn of the century in Germany, like as a young male, either as a lady, as a female, and you end up fighting in World War II. You get absolutely destroyed. Your country's humiliated. The reparations are so horrendous that your society falls prey to a propped up person who speaks in these wonderful promises that's going to lead the country back, but all secretly, doing these terrible things with the Holocaust, only for you guys, for like your home city to be destroyed and completely decimated on the world stage once again, and then being shamed because you were one of the people that you had no idea what was going on, even though you were just trying to protect your family, live your life. I'm just saying, like, there were people on the countryside, older people who weren't fighting in the war, who were out in the countryside, who those are the people that U.S. soldiers would come across. They would raid. They would take their livestock to try to feed themselves. Like think about those people too. What they saw. Both the people who were trying to help fight against the Holocaust, those who were martyred for the cause. Like, you got to think of like those people thinking, after post World War II Europe. Oh my gosh. mean, that's where postmodernism comes from. That's where this idea of no absolute truth and kind of this leading into hedonism comes from, because they saw just so much evil. And like we as Christians sometimes like, well, we can't get our mocha latte from Starbucks because the line was too long. Like, oh, my life. Now that's an extreme example, but it's like, we're not, guys, like, can you chill for a second and put things into perspective? We are the most privileged people to have ever lived since before the flood. We don't really know a lot about what happened before the flood, as far as how advanced civilization was. But after that, we're the most privileged people to have ever existed on this planet if you're living in the United States. And there is poverty everywhere. Jesus said, poor will always be with you. Like, I get it. I'm saying this describes most people, especially if you have the ability to listen to this podcast. Things might not be going well for you, but they're the same things that people have had to deal with since the beginning of time. It does not mean we need to look at ourselves in the mirror and go, look how special we are. This must be the end times. It comes out of a form of narcissism. It comes out of a form of self-idolatry that we think these things. I don't personally think we're anywhere close to Jesus coming back, but guess what? Not of the Son of Man, Jesus says, saying that no human knows, no angel knows. It's only God the Father, head of the Trinity himself, that understands when that hour is. And so no one's going to know. And I don't want to spend an ounce of energy more trying to fret about when that's going to happen. When Jesus says himself, like, here are the signs. But make no mistake, just because bad things are happening now does not mean that bad things haven't always happened. And the fact that things haven't been much worse. How about a third of Europe dying during some plagues 500 years ago, whenever that plague was? I can't remember, the Black Plague. And so, like, you guys are going to have to fact check me on a lot of this. I'm just talking at the moment, but it's like, that's not happening. So let's put some things into perspective. So that's why I wanted to call this Perspective today. It's okay to talk about this stuff. It's okay to. I think it is interesting. It's personally not something that I'm interested in. However, I don't think it's a sin to discuss. It's not to shame. I just want to say, guys, like, there are a lot more important things that Jesus has for us than whether or not to debate when the sign is coming, because guess what? He says no one knows. And we can debate about whether we're looking out for the signs, but you just got to read Matthew 24. Are any of those signs happening? And if they are happening, couldn't I make an argument that they've actually been worse in other periods of history? Not just us now? That's my argument. So just kind of settle down. We're just going to chill and gain some perspective. May God bless you. May God keep you.